Hello, I'm Nathan P. Butler, author of a Saga on home video and host of From the Star Wars Home Video Library here on YouTube, and this is Star Wars Home Video Year by Year. This time we take a look at 2012. And to me, it's kind of a noteworthy year in Star Wars stuff beyond home video. Obviously, your mileage will vary. It kind of depends on the stuff that stands out to me as the host here that I like to point out as context. So this is actually the year that the Dawn of the Jedi comics launched, that are sort of the earliest chronological stories that we are getting in many respects for Star Wars, giving some sort of origin to what will eventually become the Jedi Order and so forth. So that was really cool to see, also by the same team that did Star Wars Legacy, from which my son Cade takes his name. So a big deal in that sense. I enjoy that stuff. We also saw the end of the Fate of the Jedi novel series with Apocalypse. We saw Celebration 6 this year. We saw the initial betas for the Fantasy Flight Games RPG line for Star Wars, starting with one this year, which was Edge of the Empire, kind of the Scoundrels and Fringes version of their RPG line, which was a great RPG line. I love the mechanisms of the dice for that game. Speaking of games, this is also the year that Star Wars Connect, or Connect Star Wars, gets released for Xbox 360. Say what you will about how goofy the game was, there were aspects of it that I enjoyed. I love the audio parodies for the dancing part, just for the audio parody aspect. And one of the first videos on this channel is actually me unboxing the Xbox 360 that came with Connect Star Wars, that was that C-3PO styled Xbox 360 with a C-3PO styled controller. Talk about a flashback. I would also call this kind of a year of a missed opportunity. It's the year that The Phantom Menace was released in 3D in theaters, which was awesome. But then we would see that Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, and none of the original trilogy, none of them would find their way to theaters in 3D. Although Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith were converted to 3D, and we would see them at conventions and whatnot, like Celebration, later. I would also note that the entire process of getting ready for a 3D release is what would eventually lead to the 4K releases of episodes 1 through 6. But the only one to ever actually hit theaters was The Phantom Menace in 2012, which is a shame. And none of the original 6, not even the ones that have a 3D version, have reached Blu-ray 3D, which is maddening to me as a fan of Blu-ray 3D. But I kind of digress. This was also the year that George Lucas sold Lucasfilm and Star Wars to Disney. As such, we get the notion coming that yes, there will be more films, there'll be more stuff coming, but it won't be from Lucas, it'll be coming through Disney. And this is going to lead to a number of cancellations, a number of new projects launching and so forth, a reboot in a sense of the franchise with the original continuity, the official continuity being set aside as Legends, and a new continuity of canon being built basically around the core of the Clone Wars in episodes 1 through 6, and then building from there. Lots of changes are coming for Star Wars. And the kickoff point basically is here, where in October of 2012, it's announced that Lucas is selling Lucasfilm to Disney, and in December, the deal is finalized. But we won't see the ramifications of those changes until subsequent years, but this year does mark a prominent moment in Star Wars history because of that. We will also find that because of the way that the licensing and distribution works, not everything is going to suddenly start coming from Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment. We're going to continue to see releases from other parties for a while. But we'll get to that in future episodes. For this episode, 2012 is primarily all about the Clone Wars. So this is the year that we saw the complete Season 4 of the Clone Wars get released on home video. We have it on Blu-ray and on DVD. This set does include some extended cuts, kind of literally, like extended stabbings, impalements, decapitation type stuff, is what we're going to tend to see going forward with any extended versions of episodes of the Clone Wars. This one has some extended cuts due to stuff like that for Carnage of Krell, Escape from Kadavo, Massacre, and Bounty. This, of course, also means we would see similar releases in places like the UK, and in the UK, we would see it in a complete Seasons 1 through 4 set. Again, Blu-ray, I believe DVD existed, I just don't have it. We also saw another individual release of the Clone Wars in the United States, but rather than something like Clone Commandos or Galaxy Divided before, where it was just 4 episodes packed together on a DVD, but it was just the episodes themselves, this is much more of sort of the treatment that we saw with Ewoks and droids. More prominently droids, because at least that series had arcs, where you have an arc that's basically re-edited and combined to sort of make a movie out of the arc. That is the last 4 episodes of Season 4 with Darth Maul Returns, only released on DVD, but this is basically a splicing together of the last 4 episodes, Massacre, Bounty, Brothers and Revenge. And the way they do it is kind of weird. They take Brothers and slice it up and sort of intersperse it with the other bits and pieces of the story rather than keeping it together. So it's kind of intercutting along the way. It is an odd one. Again, as I mentioned before, if you want in-depth details, nitty-gritty, super granular details on how any of the animated series were tweaked for things like those feature-length versions, you'll find them in a set of changes for better and or worse sidebars in my A Saga on Home Video 2nd edition. In this case, if we're talking about animated stuff, that does mean we're looking at Volume 3, which is the one that goes beyond the live-action films. Speaking of individual Clone Wars releases, or at least single-disc releases, the UK basically gave up on the idea of 4 individual volumes for each season of the Clone Wars after Season 2. So that's done. But Australia kept on going through Season 4, which means that here we get Season 3. And with it changing over from having that shared artwork with the UK, I really actually like this artwork here. I believe this is similar to art we would see out of Japan as well, but there's volumes 1 and 2, then 3, then 4. This year also saw the end, thus far, of DVDs packaged in with Star Wars action figure packs. So in this case, we're actually finishing out an arc that began last year. In 2011, we saw the first 2 episodes of the Geonosis arc from the Clone Wars released at Walmart with figures and DVDs. Here we see the last 2 episodes of the same arc also released as exclusive to Walmart. We have Legacy of Terror here. Notice you got your DVD behind it, and the DVD there is basically the theatrical widescreen version that you would see on the season set, but just for that one episode here. You have Obi-Wan and a clone trooper for this one. And then for Brain Invaders, we have Clone Trooper Scythe, and we have Ahsoka Tano. And just to show you what the discs look like, here we have Legacy of Terror, and then Brain Invaders. Speaking of action figures, here's a weird one. They continue in 2012 to celebrate the Blu-ray release of the complete saga back in 2011. What we got this time, though, instead of packs of multiple figures separated by film, as we saw in 2011, instead we get Return of the Jedi deleted scenes figures. These are figures that are based on scenes that were cut specifically from Return of the Jedi, and only Return of the Jedi. And you wouldn't think that these are tied in specifically to the home video release, except for the fact that they flat out say that they are here in 2012. So, one example here is Colonel Kraken from the Millennium Falcon crew. Notice there it does say deleted scene figure Blu-ray. So, yeah, it is a tie-in to the Blu-ray launch here, but a year late, effectively. Perhaps they were expecting you to have to save your money again after buying all those freaking sets in the previous year. But we have Colonel Kraken there, Aaron Kraken. We have Rebel pilot Mon Calamari. We have Luke Skywalker lightsaber construction, Lando Calrissian sandstorm outfit, and Princess Leia sandstorm outfit. So basically, Leia with the slave gear with stuff over top of it, effectively, is kind of what this is meant to be. And of course, the sandstorm and the lightsaber construction are certainly the most prominent deleted scenes from Return of the Jedi that most folks know about. So, kind of a cool premise for figures here. It's kind of odd that they're releasing them in 2012 and yet still promoting them as something tied into those Blu-rays. Also, in terms of continuing series, we see the final DVD release in a 3-DVD series with a weird tweak to its name. And that is the 3rd volume of what, up until now, we've seen as the DVDs known as You Can Draw Star Wars, sharing the name with the book. But no, for the 3rd release of Matt Bush's video series, collected here in standard definition on DVD, we get How to Draw Star Wars, Volume 3. Beats me. Then rounding out this episode, we have a standalone Blu-ray release rather than inside a box set of Family Guy Blue Harvest. All the stuff that I'm seeing on here copyright-wise does say 2010, but according to Blu-ray.com, this actually does come out in 2012. Those dates are for those previous releases. So a Blu-ray and digital copy release of Family Guy Blue Harvest, so you can have the individual Blu-rays now if you don't want the box set. So definitely some interesting stuff here in 2012, but in essence, this is the calm between 2 years of storms. 2011, the previous year, was huge. To see what I mean on the other side of this year, come back next time as we check out 2013.